Iltija Mufti, thank you so much for speaking with Hindustan Times. I want to start by asking you, many people were surprised when it was announced that you are going to be contesting in a traditional family constituency. What made you decide to take the leap?
Honestly, I have to admit this is not my decision. The party felt it was best for me to contest because you know that there's been a complete vacuum since the past 5 years, and the state, the current state of things in Kashmir is such that the party felt that we need voices that are going to be strong and, more importantly, truthful. And they felt that I've been very vocal and vociferously vocal since 2019 after the scrapping of Article 370. So this was entirely the party's decision. And obviously, Miss Mufti also had quite a big role to play in this. They felt that I was capable enough to, get in and make my political debut.
Um, I think we all heard and got acquainted with you as a
Yeah.
voice from the valley after the scrapping of 370. Tell me some
Yeah.
of the instances. Did you have a realization even then that you're actually quite a political person, that this was actually an inevitability at some time? It was going to happen. That kind of realization, did it come at that time?
I mean, I've always been a very political being. When you grow up in a political family where your breakfast, lunch, tea, dinner conversations all revolve around politics, you kind of like it's inherent in the sense that I don't want to sound like a product of nepotism because everybody will jump to say that. But it came very naturally. I was naturally interested in politics. I majored in political science. But to be honest, I never had plans to join mainstream politics. Even when my grandfather and mother were, chief ministers, I would never even come in front of the camera or like be seen with them. So obviously the journey has been very unpredictable. I never expected to fight an election, even though I knew that I was very political. I had political interests. I've always been, an avid reader. I followed politics, but this was quite unexpected for me as well, to be honest with you. But life is that, right? Like life is what happens when you make plans and then something else happens. So this has been that.
And everyone obviously doesn't fare the same in politics. So you're, of course,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, your grandfather,
Yeah.
Mufti Saab's granddaughter, and of course your mother. We've seen her in parliament as well, Mehbooba Mufti. But your uncle, Tasadduq, also came into politics, but then, he left it. So
Yeah.
what did you take away from his experience? And he's, of course, we know him as someone who is into advertising, into filmmaking, and then he ventured into this area, and he left. So,
Yeah.
what are the various lessons that you've gleaned from all these experiences?
I mean, like you said, everybody's political trajectory is going to be very different. It's not going to be the same. When you talk about my grandfather, Mufti Sahab saw a lot of failures more than successes. He had to work very hard. Most of the electoral battles that he fought, he lost them. And my mother had a different political trajectory. And when you talk about my uncle, as you said, he's into filmmaking and he's exceptionally talented and gifted. But obviously, all three of them have had their own political journeys. And I don't think it would be right on my part to comment on, if their journey was okay or not okay or good or bad. But I know that my journey is going to be different from them or and anybody else. So in politics, I think we all come with our own takdir. You have luck as well. That plays a huge role. You could be extremely hardworking, meticulous, diligent, but still your political career doesn't take off. So at the end of the day, it's all kismat, it's takdir, it's what Allah has written. So whatever Allah has written for me, if I'm to succeed or fail, I'll accept it. I'm going in it with, an open mind.
Since you brought up that N word, nepotism, I
Yeah.
are you having the first, challenge of dealing with those charges? Because I know that there are, this always happens as a political
Yeah.
writer. I've seen this as well. That there are people who are disappointed because they are ticket aspirants, and now I know that
Mhm.
there are various people within your party who expected that ticket, who are now very upset that it's been given and kept in the family. How do you deal
Mhm.
with those nepotism charges? Because I've heard various explanations from various people. How do you deal with it, Iltija?
Well, there are two parts of your question. I'll address the latter part, which you just mentioned that people are upset. I think this is a figment of the media's imagination, and this is something that is interestingly being planted in Delhi because I read about it as well. And people in the party have no problem at all. And in fact, this was an idea that was pitched by them, like I mentioned earlier. I wasn't very comfortable about getting into electoral politics, but they felt that this is a role, a decisive role that I will have to play, and so I took it up. So I'm sorry, I'll have to dismiss that as speculation and gossip. As far as the nepotistic part is concerned, about being a product of some family, I am proud of the fact that I'm Mufti Saab's granddaughter and I'm Mehbooba ji's daughter. And this whole family raj propaganda again is something that is perpetuated and orchestrated by the BJP to kind of like discredit us. But let me tell you, Sunetra, my mother did not have everything handed to her on a silver platter. She worked incredibly hard, and everybody, even her harshest detractors, will tell you that if Mufti Sahab became the chief minister of Jammu and Kashmir after so much of struggle, after decades of struggle, it was because Mehbooba ji laid the groundwork for him. So our family has been very different. It's not like your typical run of the mill political family where the mantle is handed over like a piece of heirloom or a carpet or a piece of jewelry from the father to the daughter or from the father to the son. My grandfather struggled and my mother struggled, and more importantly, my mother struggled for him. So, we are not your typical run of the mill political family. So, people will say what they have to. They're entitled to their opinion, but it does not disturb me at all.
But you have taken note of the fact that, this has been one of those recurring themes that Prime Minister Modi also talks about a lot. In fact,
Hmm.
even as late as recently as his 15th August speech, he talked about getting this kind of garnering new talent, nurturing new talent of
Hmm.
people, 100 people who have absolutely no political background. And
Hmm.
he's talked
Hmm.
about the fact, the one thing, that when he attacks regional parties, he attacks them on this fact. He says that, look, those regional parties are
But then
all
he doesn't mind
family.
aligning with them. He doesn't mind aligning with the Chirag Paswan. He doesn't mind aligning with other nepotistic families. You have who do you have in Andhra? The new chief minister? Am
Chandrababu
Telangana or
Naidu.
Andhra? Both the parties, even
Chandrababu Naidu.
Jagan Reddy is a nepotistic family byproduct. So you don't mind it then. You have a problem when we're not your allies. So I don't take this very seriously. And Sunetra, let me make one thing very clear. Just because I am entering into the political arena does not mean that somebody else should not get that space because they don't come from a political family or they don't have a political legacy, so to speak. There are immensely talented people in our own party, young people, young boys, young girls who are not a mufti, and I'm sure they'll get their space. But you can't snatch my space or tell me that I cannot enter the political arena because I'm Mehbooba Mufti's daughter. Let that be a decision that is taken by the people, because that is the beauty of a democracy, that at the end of the day, it's the people who will decide. It's not something that you can shove down their throats and tell them that you have to reject them because they are muftis or they're from whatever political families. Let people decide. If people decide to reject me, if they don't want me to represent them, sar aankhon pe, whatever they decide. But that is the beauty of a democracy. Why do you have to force feed them? Let them decide on their own if they want me or not.
So tell me something. What is your vision as a younger person starting out in politics, with the elections now coming in a month later? What is it that the party and you are promising, and what do you think the people of the valley need?
Sunetra, for the past 5 years, after the illegal abrogation of Article 370, people here have suffered immensely. And it's just not economic, strife or strain. It's also a psychological blow that's been inflicted since 2019. There's no sense of security. There's no sense of dignity. There's a sense that they're going to be losing their identity, because it's almost like the government in Delhi wants to do a lobotomy. They want us to forget our collective history, our collective identity, our collective culture. And so we want to reassure people that we'll keep fighting for their rights, we'll keep fighting for their identity, and also give them hope. It's very easy right now to be hopeless, to be despondent, and because there's so much despondency in Kashmir. I'm not fighting elections at a very normal time. I'm fighting elections at a time where the assembly, if inshallah, God willingly, I go into this assembly, it will be a UT. So from a semi autonomous state which had its own flag and constitution, we've been degraded, we've been demeaned, and we've been demoted. So my immediate concern would be to give a sense of security to the people, and to be able to tell them that I am here for you, and I am going to articulate your pain and give you hope as well, about the future, that we will secure your jobs, we'll secure our resources, and more importantly, we'll fight for our dignity.
The statehood thing is something that the Congress has also talked about. What do you think of the alliance that they've just announced? I mean, doesn't make them very formidable?
I mean, look, I think an alliance at this point in Kashmir is a good idea, because this is something that the PDP has consistently said. So much has been done to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It's imperative for political parties to set aside their political differences and come together on the same platform. Because you see, BJP is a very formidable entity that you're up against. They have agencies, they have the media, they have pretty much everybody in their pocket. So I think an alliance is a good idea. And as far as statehood is concerned, I think that has been, every time a union minister comes here, they talk about impending elections in statehood. But to be honest, I don't see that happening, because they are far too comfortable ruling Jammu Kashmir under their thumb. They're far too comfortable with the idea of direct rule from Delhi. So I don't see statehood happening anytime soon.
The positivity with which you talk about alliances, does that mean that the PDP isn't really ruling out joining together, that something like the Gupkar alliance that we had before, that could be revived?
Look, let me be very honest with you. The Gupkar alliance was Miss Mehbooba Mufti's brainchild, and she put aside her ego and all her differences, and she came up, with this idea that why don't we all get on the same platform and pass a resolution? And this was way back, 5 years ago, right before they revoked Article 370. I think an alliance is always a good idea, but as far as the nitty gritties are concerned, this is something that only the party can answer. What I am telling you here is my opinion. It's my personal opinion. So it doesn't necessarily represent the party's stand.
Understood. So when Rahul Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge were in the valley,
Yeah.
and they met lots of people, did they reach out to the PDP?
That is something that only Miss Mufti can answer.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
intriguing enough.
That's a
What do you
slippery
make?
slope that I'm not going to get on. It's like walking on a banana peel and just slipping. So I'm going to just
Okay,
avoid
okay, but
walking right into that.
ev- even not speaking about that actually says a lot. Now, I want to ask you. Lots
Yeah.
of people were kind of curious about the win that engineer Rashid had,
Yeah.
and now he is supposed to be fighting many more seats.
Yeah.
So how much of a factor, and what do you make of that phenomenon? And then I want you to explain a little bit about the
Hmm.
lessons that the 2024 verdict had for Kashmir and
Hmm.
nationally, according to you.
I think the biggest lesson for the Lok Sabha election in regards to Jammu and Kashmir was for the government that is sitting in Delhi, for the powers that be, that no matter how much you try to, orchestrate this propaganda of normalcy, and I call them normalcy acrobatics that they've been doing for the past 5 years, they stand discredited, because at the end of the day, people chose a representative who fought the election, Sunetra, mind you, with minimum resources, sitting in a cell in Tihar, and he won. And this is a man who's had very controversial views. He's been pro Azadi. I believe he's been pro referendum as well. I'm not sure about that. But I think he's been controversial because of his views. And he's seen as someone who is pro, the separatist camp. So if when he wins, that is emblematic of New Delhi's failures in Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370. So that tells you all that there is to know. I mean, this man comes out of nowhere. He files his candidature papers, not even a fortnight before the elections, and he wins, and it's a sweeping win. And he's trounced a former chief minister by a margin of, I think, almost 3 lakh votes. So what does that tell you? The
You know,
lesson
you
is more for the Indian government than it is for us. I mean, we've been saying this consistently since 2019, that there is an increasing sense of alienation and isolation that the people of Jammu and Kashmir feel vis-a-vis the rest of the country. But whatever we say is not taken seriously, obviously, and it's dubbed as, we're dubbed as separatists or pro-Pakistanis or whatever, all that nonsense.
No, so, and the people kind of leveling those allegations at you are also your former allies. And I wanted to, you have been unequivocal about your feelings about the BJP. So has
Yeah.
Miss Mufti, your mother. I wanted to just ask you, because, we can't oversee the fact that a decade ago, your party was in
Hmm.
alliance with the BJP. Now,
Sure.
and I was looking at this poster that has been sent to me by colleagues in Jammu and Kashmir. And do you think that, they're saying that it was 11:30 darkest days of the PDP rule, there were civilian killings, they're making all these
Hmm.
things. Do you think that the, it was an alliance which went completely wrong? But do you think
Yeah.
that you'll have to pay the price for it? That alliance that you had with the BJP
Yeah.
is now something that is a baggage that you all have to carry.
Sunetra, let me tell you, Mufti Sahab gambled his party for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Anybody else in his position would have formed an alliance with the Congress. There was a reason why he went with the BJP, because he felt that allying with a Muslim party would moderate Prime Minister Modi, just like it moderated Atal Bihari Vajpayee to a great extent. I mean, the kind of things, the CBMs that were taken during Vajpayee ji's tenure as Prime Minister, even a Congress Prime Minister wouldn't have done it. The Uri Muzaffarabad, road opening, him visiting Pakistan, our trade links opening, dialogue with Pakistan, dialogue with the Hurriyat. So my grandfather's intentions were never wrong. And what's sad is that he died. He went into his grave with this sadness, with this aching pain in his heart, because I feel that, he knew that what he was going to lose. His party was at stake. This party that he and his daughter had so painstakingly built over decades. So that was not an easy decision to take. But was the intention wrong? Absolutely not. The intention was to, moderate the BJP and to be able to resolve the larger issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, alliances can, be right or they can go wrong. And unfortunately, this alliance was not right. It was like oil and water mixing, and we know that oil and water don't mix. But I think the underlying intention behind it was not wrong. And you spoke about the party's future. I think nothing in politics is permanent. Like Marx says, there's always a circulation of elites. One party comes, the other sits in opposition. So if PDP is down and out, it's not down and out forever. We know we're going through a very tumultuous phase. There's been a mass exodus that's been orchestrated by the Indian government, but I'm confident that we are going to bounce back, and inshallah that'll be sooner than later.
So, one other question I wanted to ask you is that, everyone, the centers talked a lot about the fact that things are better in the valley now after
Mhm.
the revocation of 370. But we're seeing really worrying, growing terror attacks in the Jammu region, in Doda and
Yeah.
areas like that. What do you think about that? What is actually happening there?
Well, it's interesting because the answer is in your question. I was just going to bring up the encounters in Rajouri, Punch, Doda, Jammu, relatively safer areas which never witnessed terror incidents or had any, incidents of militancy as well. So that tells you everything that you need to know, Sunetra. You know that the Indian government for the past 10 years has been engaging in a lot of propaganda where they lie through their teeth. And it's just not Jammu Kashmir, it's the economy, it's COVID. They lie through their teeth about everything. So we've known since 2019 that things here are not normal. There's a huge sense of isolation. People feel disillusioned. You see that there's been a jump in militancy in the sense that the boys who are now joining militancy are extremely well educated. These are boys who are like PhD holders. Men who are so well educated. So that tells you everything. But they want to behave like the proverbial ostrich with its head in the sand, and they don't want to acknowledge these facts. They don't want to acknowledge the truth. And the sad part is that the collateral damage and the cannon fodder is just not civilians, Kashmiri people, but also our soldiers. So many of our soldiers have lost their lives in the line of duty because of this propaganda, because they refuse to engage with the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
And the solution lies?
The solution lies in speaking to them. Do you, when are you planning to speak to the people of Jammu and Kashmir? Till what point are you going to keep orchestrating this propaganda ki everything is normal, naya Kashmir, naya Kashmir? What naya Kashmir are you talking about? Their encounters, there's a sense of isolation, there's a sense of disillusionment. You know, the moderate ground that you had in Kashmir, that's finished. You want to obliterate the mainstream, you want to discredit the parties, you want to render them politically impotent. फिर आप कहते हैं सब कुछ normal है, it's नया Kashmir. What is new about this Kashmir? It's the same Kashmir that you're just trying to repackage over and over, and you failed at that. You know, be right or they can go wrong. And unfortunately, this alliance was not right. It was like oil and water mixing, and we know that oil and water don't mix. But I think the underlying intention behind it was not wrong. And you spoke about the party's future. I think nothing in politics is permanent. You know, like Marx says, there's always a circulation of elites. One party comes, the other sits in opposition. So if PDP is down and out, it's not down and out forever. We know we're going through a very tumultuous phase. There's been a mass exodus that's been orchestrated by the Indian government, but I'm confident that we are going to bounce back, and inshallah that'll be sooner than later.
So, one other question I wanted to ask you is that, everyone, the centers talked a lot about the fact that things are better in the valley now after
Mhm.
the revocation of 370, but we're seeing really worrying, growing terror attacks in the Jammu region, in Doda and
Yeah.
areas like that. What do you think about that? What is actually happening there?
Well, it's interesting because the answer is in your question. I was just going to bring up the encounters in Rajouri, Punch, Doda, Jammu, relatively safer areas which never witnessed terror incidents or had any, incidents of militancy as well. So that tells you everything that you need to know, Sunetra. You know that the Indian government for the past 10 years has been engaging in a lot of propaganda where they lie through their teeth. And it's just not Jammu Kashmir, it's the economy, it's COVID. They lie through their teeth about everything. So we've known since 2019 that things here are not normal. There's a huge sense of isolation. People feel disillusioned. You see that there's been a jump in militancy in the sense that the boys who are now joining militancy are extremely well educated. These are boys who are like PhD holders. Men who are so well educated. So that tells you everything. But they want to behave like the proverbial ostrich with its head in the sand, and they don't want to acknowledge these facts. They don't want to acknowledge the truth. And the sad part is that the collateral damage and the cannon fodder is just not civilians, Kashmiri people, but also our soldiers. So many of our soldiers have lost their lives in the line of duty because of this propaganda, because they refuse to engage with the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
And the solution lies?
The solution lies in speaking to them. Do you, when are you planning to speak to the people of Jammu and Kashmir? Till what point are you going to keep orchestrating this propaganda ki everything is normal, naya Kashmir, naya Kashmir? What naya Kashmir are you talking about? Their encounters, there's a sense of isolation, there's a sense of disillusionment. The moderate ground that you had in Kashmir, that's finished. You want to obliterate the mainstream, you want to discredit the parties, you want to render them politically impotent. फिर आप कहते हैं सब कुछ normal है, it's नया Kashmir. What is new about this Kashmir? It's the same Kashmir that you're just trying to repackage over and over, and you failed at that. And we are the ones who have to pay a price. And when I say we are the ones, I don't mean the political parties. I don't mean Iltija Mufti. I mean every resident of Jammu and Kashmir who's had to pay a price. And sometimes you pay a price with your life for their propaganda.
A day after that, we got to know that you're contesting, and PDP's plans came out. Very curiously, the BJP also announced that Ram Madhav is back in the BJP. He was back in the RSS, but he came back to the BJP and he headed straight for Srinagar. Do you have any
Mhm.
comments to make? He's of course been credited with getting the alliance together, that he was the one who decided and who helped in bringing the PDP together with the BJP. Do you think it's
What
a,
are you
I mean,
trying to insinuate,
I,
Sunitra?
no, I'm not. I'm
You're
saying,
just trying to insinuate something which makes no sense at all. And if they've chosen him, that's their discretion. Listen, I'm not a child here. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not going to fall into this trap that you're laying out for me. I know what you're trying to
it wasn't a
insinuate,
trap.
and none of it. make sense and nor is it true. So it's completely up to the BJP who they choose. We have absolutely nothing to do with it. We are fighting this election alone, and we're going to do what we can do, and we're a strong party. But these weird insinuations make absolutely no sense to me. Yeah.
So you don't even have a comment on the, like him coming over here, being in charge of Kashmir again. Does it make their party stronger? Does it make them much more of a formidable,
Listen,
rival?
nothing at this point, Sunetra, is going to make the BJP popular. They're extremely unpopular. They're extremely unpopular in their own bastions in Jammu where people just want them gone. And I'm afraid no matter how many rallies the union ministers make, it is not going to help because people have had enough of their patent nonsense. People know कि इनकी जो सारी वो चीजें होते हैं, they're jumlabazi. People are fed up with their jumlabazi. So no matter who they appoint, they are a sinking ship, and a sinking ship will eventually sink. And the BJP
Okay,
is going to sink in these elections.
small follow-up question to that, Iltija.
Yeah.
They'll say that we've retained both the seats in Jammu. So how
Hmm.
can Miss Mufti say that we are losing ground and people don't want us in Jammu because we've
They can
won
say
both the
whatever
seats?
they want to. I am not here to prove myself. I have seen how much they lie through their nose. And let me tell you one thing, Sunetra, even the parliament election was never fair to begin with. The gerrymandering that was done to favor them in Jammu and Kashmir, to dilute the vote bank of the opposition and to strengthen and consolidate their own, you cannot possibly tell me. I think you've done your research pretty well. Are you telling me you're not aware of the gerrymandering they did prior
You're
to the
talking about
elections?
the delimitation exercise, which gave
Of
more
course. So
seats to
it
the
was
Jammu region.
it was
Right.
meant to help them. And even after that, they struggled winning those two seats. And you saw what happened in Kashmir. They were so scared, they didn't even want to field their own candidates. So they were supporting proxies. What did they do in Miss Mufti's elections? They delayed it. And we know what happened in that 1 month when that election was delayed, how people from different communities were called and they were explicitly asked not to vote for Miss Mufti. So let me tell you, Sunetra, that shame on them that even after so much gerrymandering, after trying to influence the elections, when they scrape through and when they win two seats, it's supposed to be sort of like an endorsement for them. It's not. And I don't want to say too much. This is just something that we'll see once the results come out. I feel कि जो उनके नीचे जमीन है वो तो खिसक रही है, and you will see this once the results are out. I don't think if the BJP is going to perform very well.
This has been enlightening, Iltija Mufti. Thank you so much for speaking to Hindustan Times and good luck with your entire campaign.
Thank you for having me, Sunitra.
Thank you.